Hi everyone. This tutorial will help you get started on the book cover design assignment. Step 1 is to download all the necessary parts to build the file. You need your copy deck, which is the Microsoft Word file, the Penguin book logo, the barcode, QR code, and you're going to develop your own art file in Photoshop, Illustrator. You can use analog, combination of all these techniques, but you need to make sure it is a high resolution image and it's CMYK. We're building this file as if it goes on an offset lithographic press. Cyan, magenta, yellow, black are the colors we'll deal with. And the requirements and specifications are all in your Canvas assignment tab, and you should have all the parts downloaded before you go to InDesign. And you also need to resize and check the color format of everything. So this book cover QR code downloaded from the internet as a PNG is index color. Well, it's just going to print black, so grayscale is fine. I'm going to discard the color information. So your barcode, QR code, and author's headshot, grayscale is fine. Image size, you check all Photoshop image sizes before going into InDesign. Obviously this is too large, 5 inches by 5 inches. It's too low of a resolution. Okay. If I uncheck resample so I can gain pixels per inch, I've reduced the size to a little over an inch by an inch now, so it's not 5 inches by 5 inches. And I have 300 pixels per inch, which is high resolution. And I will say OK. I'm going to do this on all the files that I've downloaded from Canvas. Then I'm going to say File, Save As. I'm going to save it to my computer in my Parts Downloaded folder. You can name folders the way you want to stay organized. I'm going to call it Resized, so I'll know it's the right one to use. I do not want to save it as a PNG. I want to save it as a TIFF. The TIFF is just, it saves more data, it prints crisper. PNGs, JPEGs can be used to print with, and so can PNGs, but for our assignment, save everything as a TIFF. And when I hit save, my TIFF options, I'm on a Mac, my byte order. Some of you are on the other platform. This will be preset. You don't have to change it. Just take a glance and make sure it says for it's a PC or a Mac and say OK. TIFFs tend to be less compressed and just have more data for printing. That's all. That's enough to know at this point. And I'm going to just click out of that. Now, these two images I'm showing you are two student files that the student used a scanner and techniques in Photoshop, and their file size is made to accommodate the bleed, right? So if my book cover trim is 5 inches wide, but I have a 1/4 inch bleed, the width in Photoshop has to be 5 1/4. Could it be slightly larger? Yes. But keep your file sizes built to the size required in InDesign within a close 1/4 inch tolerance, let's say. We know that the book height is 7 3/4 or 7.75, but my artwork has to go to the bleed. Therefore, my Photoshop file, in its height, I have to add a 1/4 inch. Her resolution is correct, 300 pixels per inch. And her image mode is CMYK. All right. So as you're building art files and experimenting, and you got to keep mode correct, CMYK, and size correct. That's for her back cover. And this is for the entire book cover. All right. So in Photoshop, she's built a file, CMYK. It's a little over 11 inches wide. So if my flat file to my trim is 7 3/4. I have to add a 1/2 inch on overall. So my book cover artwork has to be built to accommodate the bleed. The height is 8 1/4. That accommodates the bleed, and it's 300 pixels per inch. So I'm going to say okay. All right. So your starting point is adjusting your art files before you bring them into InDesign. I don't need to save those. All right. This is the student's file in InDesign. This outer edge is the bleed. The inner black line is her trim, and here is the guideline. So when we look at how this file is built, she's relying on her Photoshop generated image to be the entire front cover. Now if I wanted, of course I add a text box. Whoops, her file's locked. I have another file I'll show you in a second. And what she's placed on the spine is the penguin logo. Her design by tagline sits on the margin. Penguin Books, penguinbooks.com, QR code, barcode, author headshot, a text box with a nicely shaped, proofread, no hyphens text box. The box's synopsis, book's synopsis in its own box. She did a graphic treatment in Photoshop to draw the viewer's eye to the top. She's using the pull quote as the visual hierarchy, the focal point, the starting point. And the viewer will read from the top down. But notice how there is plenty of white space or area around the text boxes. The text boxes aren't too close to the margin or the spine. There's extra space between the two paragraphs, a nice use of space here above his head, and this was a very well done, very clearly built file and an interesting concept as well. Where in Photoshop she's using color, she's using text right out of the book that's, war is peace, ignorance is strength. These kind of concepts that are still kind of relevant today in trying to decipher information in fact from fiction. And the color red draws your eye to the title of the book. All right. The reason I'm pulling up the specifications is in Canvas, the directions are there, and you need to be very careful and thorough in following all the directions and following all the measurements. Following measurements and setting up guidelines is not any different than your first assignment, the 2-column layout. Here we're introducing a new concept, bleeds. Bleeds are ink coverage that goes past the trim. Okay? So the size, I have a front cover and a back cover and a spine. So when this is put together, it's like 3 separate parts, but they all print on a single sheet of paper. So the width is 5 inches for the book cover. The height is 7 3/4. The spine is 7/8 of an inch. But when I have a flat rectangle, because I'm going to design the front cover and the back cover together and the spine, this would be the overall document trim area in InDesign. All right, which brings me to this demo file. So what I set up is a flat rectangle with 1/4 inch bleeds. The bleed is this red line. The bleed is required. You're going to have art elements that will print off of the trim, and they need to go to the bleed. It's a fail if you don't do that. All right? bleed is ink coverage necessary to go past the trim. So as you noticed with the student file here, her art file goes all the way out to the bleed. The reason I went to her layers is I'm unlocking her file so I can show you. All right. I have my toolbar set up so things I need are off to my side here. It's easy to do. You can find things under window. Then when the pull down menu, fly out menu shows up, you can just tuck it in over here. Okay? But I'm using my selection tool. I'm grabbing her art and I'm pulling it off to the side. Now you can see what's going on. Her bleed, trim, margin. So when you do file place, your larger art file would go all the way out to the bleed. Her other image here is this element. So let me just pull it apart, right? Whoa, well, of course I can't read any of that, right? So here she built this. She was playing around with it. She wasn't sure what she wanted to do. A visual hierarchy and contrast are essential. She made this black shape so she could use white type when she places the image in there. I better do it correctly. I'm looking at the pull quotes in the art. That we have plenty of contrast to be able to read the words. Okay? So this is critical in your design thinking. I need the reader to be able to read my type. I need things nicely structured, well shaped, no hyphens, and it's a lot of different things to juggle, but that's what we're learning to do. So if I'm back at my demo file here, you can clearly see that when I did file new, that's where I did all my setup. And I know you know how to do that from the first assignment. What I did down here, and I showed you this in class, if I look at a paperback book and I look at the three-dimensionality of the object and I hold it in my hand, I have a cover, that's the front, the spine, and then the back cover. So I labeled which is which, just in case you were getting confused, and it helps me remember what artwork I'm going to place where. All right, they're just sitting off to the side. You don't have to do that. I was just doing it to help illustrate this. I have my rulers on so I can see measurements, or if I want to grab any kind of guideline. Right? So I use my selection tool, my guideline. My guideline can help me line up elements. I'm just going to leave it sit there. I need guidelines to define where the spine is. So let me explain that and watch my measurements. An X coordinate is going across the horizontal width of your page. If you see the letter X as you're pulling the guideline, you can see the measurement. See how I'm a little over 5 inches? It says 5.08 inches. And then when I'm right at the 5-inch mark, I know to release my mouse or release your touchpad and set the 5/8 or 5 inch measurement. This one I'm moving around, right? I know that the spine is 7/8 of an inch wide, so it's 5.875 like in the directions. So just look, I'm in the middle, you can see where I'm moving there. And it says 8.75 inches. All right, so this is my spine area. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm double checking that I let go at the right spot. It seemed that I didn't. There it is, 5.875. Okay. Okay. So up here in your toolbar, it'll show you measurements. So as I'm moving this guideline, look in that upper left-hand corner. That's the other way you know you've done your measurement correctly. All right. If I have any text boxes turned on and you look up here, it's telling you the measurement and positioning of the text boxes. So So as you move things, you're going to notice these numbers move. Okay. X coordinate, Y coordinates are up and down. See how when I'm going vertically across my page and that Y is moving? The reason I'm pointing this out, as you get more skilled and experienced in InDesign, you're going to want to notice where things are placed, because we're talking about proximity of images, alignment of type in images, use of white space, and we're building a file. It's like architecture. I'm going to move that box back where I had it. Now, things I know you already know how to do is format text, place text. So I placed my MS Word file here. I'm going to zoom in. In my Microsoft Word file I gave you, you're going to see when you have type, show hidden characters. Always, always, always keep them on. You need to check where you have hard returns, soft returns, line spaces, tabs, right? Well, I had to get rid of all those. These shapes here are soft returns, a shift return. A hard return is a Pilcrow shape. It's a paragraph, and you'll always see them at the end of a paragraph. You hit return. I hit a second return, so I'd have extra space between two paragraphs. So when I'm over here in my InDesign file, I went through and I eliminated all the soft returns so that when I move my box, my type moves with it, just like it did when you did your text wrap in your first assignment. I like extra space between my two paragraphs. So we have one block of type, a brief outline. We have another block of type, our pull quote, that can be a decorative element as well as informational. And then we have about the author. So I'm going to zoom out. All right. You're going to experiment with point sizes, and right now you're experimenting with thinking about type as an expressive element intuitively. And here I've used Minion Pro because that type family provides me with a lot of options to add emphasis. I can make things bold, bold italic. Medium weight is a little heavier than regular. Condensed type tends to look compressed and tall. I don't usually use it. It's sometimes hard to read. You're definitely not going to use it on a very small book cover. Okay? I like Minion. It's a serif. So when I use it small, the serifs help guide the viewer's eye across the baseline. I'm just using it regular. I think 9-point type is going to work, so I use 9 on 12-point lead. When I use small point sizes, often adding a little extra leading. The rule of thumb is usually 2 points of lead more, but here I use 12. And if we go back to the student example I showed you and we highlight, let's see what the student used. The student used 11-point type on 12-point leading. That's a little tight. Maybe it kind of echoes the tightness here, but if I highlight it all and add some leading and just moved a couple elements, it probably would make it a little easier for the reader. But notice how I have a red plus, right? Maybe she did it that way. She might not like this definitely too close. I think she did it to optimize her use of space so things wouldn't collide into each other. You will learn more of this and make decisions the more you work in InDesign. So this is basically your second InDesign project. And it'll take some time and practice. Now when I look at this shape I've put into my file, and I'll zoom in for you, I've already went to paragraph hyphen, here I'll pull this out so you can see it, and I've already turned off hyphenation. So as you remove the soft returns and you make your text box and place your copied and pasted text into it, make sure you do Command A, highlight it all, and make sure you remove hyphenation. When you're doing a very small project like this with just a couple of text boxes, you have to remove the hyphens. If I have a bunch of hyphens, it's going to look sloppy and terrible. I'm going to close my paragraphs. I'm going back to Window, Type, Paragraph. And the reason I did that is I really just want to tuck it into my toolbar there. All right. I'm just going to leave that there. Also, I've set up my spine, and I want to make sure my text is not too close to my spine. 1/4 inch margin. I'm going to just see if I can move some of those words over a little bit. There. So I have a little more white space. All right. I'm just going to leave that pull quote there. I could come back and fix it in a moment. Here, what I want to talk about is that the author's text is going to be smaller than my synopsis. So here I have it at 9-point Minion Pro regular on 12. Well, down here I'm going to do a quick Command A. I'm going to make it 8-point. I'm going to make it on 10, 2 points more than the point size, and then I'm just going to make it italic. All right. I don't know if I need the words about the author yet or not. I'm just going to leave that box alone for a moment. All right, I'm going to go File, Place. I'm going to look for my resized George Orwell headshot. And there it is in my parts box. And I'm going to say Open. And there it is. I'm just going to place it. So I've resized it. I cropped it a little in Photoshop as well. And this, what I want to show you is I'm going to combine it with that text, and what I want to do is a text wrap. So if I go under Window, Text Wrap, and I know you know how to do this from our previous assignment, and I'll give it some space. All right, so what I want to do is make a unit. My headshot with my about the author, and I'm going to zoom in. Okay, and I'm going to also make this not as wide. I'm looking at the overall shape. I want to make it a little more even, but I like how I have the date. Okay, I'm going to zoom in so you can see it better. All right, I've already selected no hyphens. I'll just show you when I pull up my paragraph again, right? Hyphenation, I turned it off already. Okay, I'm working in a smaller space to save on file size, so I don't have my whole desktop being used. You might have all your options right here. Right here again is hyphenation too. Now I'm going to delete about the author. I think it'll be pretty obvious to the reader if you see the headshot of the author, his eyes and face facing into the text. I think people will know it's about George Orwell. I'm going to delete that extra return. Okay, I kind of like that. And I'm going to move the picture down a hair. Down a little. Oh, but I was going to do a text wrap. Let's see something. Oh, that looks horrible. 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 Whoa. I don't know. Seems kind of silly to use a text wrap unless the text is actually wrapping. Well, I have an idea. I'm going to do Command A. I'm just going to make it a little bigger so it does that. All right. Whoa, but I better fix the leading. See how tight that is? It's all mushed together. Command A. More. Oh, I think I like it better now. All right. That's not too in and out. And then what I like is I can tuck this in. How about if I do it like that? I got white space. I'm going to just tighten it up. All right. Now the reason I wanted to do text wrap, you don't have to. You can do, as long as you have even shapes. All right. If I click on my text wrap and look at the bottom, well, maybe I have it too big. Nope. Let's make it a little smaller. No, I don't like that. All right. I'm going to take that box and just, I use my arrow key right about there. Yeah, I'll just move it back up where it was. Okay, good. Really what I want to show you is this. I'm going to take my image, I'm going to hold my shift key and take my text box, object group. Object group. The reason for that is, as I add other elements, I can keep these two together and move them around where it visually makes sense. All right. I'm going to say file place, and I'm going to drop in my barcode. I'm going to tuck it in the corner. That seems to be a good size. I'm going to look over here at the rulers. I'm going to grab a guideline. I'm going to put it there. So here's my trim, right? Here's my guideline for my margin. And I'm just kind of looking at the ruler here. I think that's about 1/4 inch tall. I'm just going to put that guideline there. I'm going to tuck my barcode in, and I'm going to go file place. And I'm going to tuck in my QR code next to it. I think they should go together. I've already resized them. I'm going to say open. Right. Now this is a little bigger. It's a lot bigger. I'm just going to say object transform scale. And I'm going to make it 70% smaller. Okay. There's other ways you could resize it, but I'm going to do it that way. And I'm going to switch these two. I'm going to put the big one first. I'm going to put the smaller one next. Matter of fact, I'm going to go to Object, Transform Scale again. This way I can keep everything together. I'm used to working this way. And I'm getting both my X and Y proportions, my height and width, 100% accurate. And I just changed that barcode a little bigger. I'm going to scoot it over here. All right. Your QR code, your barcode should be close together and close to the same size. All right. Now I'm going to say File Place. I need my penguin. I'm going to say Open. I'll just drop it there. I'm going to zoom out. Oh my goodness gracious. It is gargantuan. So I'm just going to go under Object Transfer Scale. You can hold your shift key and use the picture box to reduce, but I already know I need that penguin pretty small. So I'm going to zoom in. All right. He's an EPS file. His resolution will be great. The EPS file is bringing in the color orange as well. This is CMYK build. I was just checking here to make sure there's no added color. Remember in your prior assignment when you dropped in your EPS file for your duotone, it made a spot color. We're not using a spot color. All right. Okay, well, my penguin can be on my spine. That might be okay. Or I could put it on the back cover. It's an element I have to have. And it's also something I'm going to need to reduce in size. And you'll notice in InDesign you have this outer box and the inner box. If I have my hand selected and I do shift, I can reduce the size and move my penguin around. I probably should come back out here though and shrink that box too. But what the outer box is letting me do is crop images within InDesign. Like if I want to use part of my penguin. We know we don't want to crop the penguin. But I also don't think I want this giant box in my way as I'm designing. So I like to tidy things up, move things around. I think what I want to do with that penguin is maybe just put him on the back cover. Whoops, Command Z. There. I think I'm just going to leave that. I'm on the fence where you should put your penguin. It doesn't go on the front cover. Look at examples of paperback books you have around and think about where the publisher puts their logo. I think this logo is still way too big. A quick and easy way: object, transform, scale. I'm going to make them 80% smaller. And I'm just using my arrow keys. I'm going to leave them on the back cover for this. All right. If we go back to the student example, don't put too close to the spine. She went ahead and made him really small, and he lives on the spine because she's got 1984 and then the penguin. All right. I know you know how to move boxes. I know you know how to place type. I'm not going to format this in my demo at all. One thing I do want to point out is if I make a text box and I have the title 1984, whoops, I better select a point size you can actually read. I'll just grab one and I'll just make it very big. All right. You're choosing typography that matches an idea or concept you have, like you did with your initial word design. All right. When I'm using 1984, one thing I'm very sensitive to is the amount of space between the 1 and the 9 and how I might kern that. Kerning is spacing between two letter forms. Do you see the amount of white space here between the 4 and the 8 and the 8 and the 9? But often when you're using a 9 or a 1 and I'm using a serif and it's the title, I just really want to, I'm going to highlight them together, is come up here. This is my kerning. Whoops, I need my cursor, sorry. And I'm going to remove space. Okay, so what just happened is I put my cursor between the two characters. I wish to eliminate extra white space. It's the title of the book. It's a dominant visual element. And this shape here is kerning. And kerning is adjusting space between two characters. When you use large point sizes, like I know this is large, it's 72 points. I could also increase the point size, but now I've tightened it up so it looks more like, oh, I'm so into it now, I'm going to go back to my kerning. And I'm going the wrong way. I'm going to, whoop, too tight. There, I'm going to leave it. All right. It's just a little FYI in the demo, but the point is you're going to need type that runs up and down the spine. If you make your box horizontal, adjust it, think about, then you can just grab the corner, pull with your mouse, rotate it, hold your shift key so everything stays perpendicular to the edge, and then you could put it in your spine. Adjust the size accordingly. All right. So after you play with the type and you think you really like it, then go look for your cover art. I'm just going to steal the student's art. Here was hers. I'm going to go to her links, and I'm going to go to cover ground and say open. I'm just going to let go. I'm going to zoom out so you can see what just happened. All right. Now after you do your artwork and you place it in, do you see how I'm looking at the bleeds? All right, I'm zooming in. Okay, there's the student artwork. I didn't have anything good for my demo. Okay, well now I covered everything up. Well, if I go to Object, Arrange, whoops, I better highlight it. There, now it's on. Right, so everything's activated, it's on. You can see the anchor points, see my selection tool. Object Arrange, send it back. Oh, there's all my parts. Well, it's a hot mess. I can't read it. I can kind of see that. So this is what you're going to have to do as you design things. You got to design for contrast. Remember in the student example, she made this black shape, torn edges, this idea of the text from the book. The whole concept of the art works nicely together. But then these text boxes in InDesign, she's using white type on a black background. She's using white type that's a little bigger than I just used. I need enough point size and contrast of color for my viewer to read it. So there's a lot of things you have to consider. If I have a text box that I've just built and I go to my fill, see how I have no fill here? Open up my swatches. I could fill it with paper, right? So if swatches are open and I have a fill, right? Okay, well, I don't think I'd use yellow in this design. It wouldn't make sense. So I can play with my text boxes. But look, okay? I need space around the type. I don't want type to touch an edge of a text box. I don't want type like this so I can't read it. I need to build shapes and layer shapes. I know you all know how to build and layer shapes because you did that in eDrawing. InDesign has layers and you can add layers as you want. If we go back to the student file, she chose to put elements on all different kinds of layers, right? So if I say layer 10, she put these words right here, look at here, on their own layer. You don't have to do that, right? But I want you to work in a way that's intuitive to you. Her layer 8 is where the penguin logo is. You also in InDesign use layers and lock them and unlock them, just like you do in Illustrator. There's a lot of similarities in building art files in Illustrator as there are in InDesign. So what I need you to do is work on the file. We'll critique it in class. I hope this demo here, as I zoom out, gave you enough information if you had missed class, didn't pay attention in class, where you can work on this easily outside of class. As always, email me questions or progress, and I will see you in class. Thank you.